Hey everyone, it's Jenny. A subscriber recently asked me to convert my written analyses into audio only podcasts that are perfect for walking or listening before bed. So here's my first attempt at making these discussions more accessible. Just pure audio with no visuals to distract you. I'm planning to convert more of my analyses this way, so let me know how you like this format. For this first episode of my audio only podcast, I'm diving deep into the relationship between Suho and Beomseok from Weak Hero Class 1. I've spent weeks creating content to remember this beautiful poem of youth forever, and after reading hundreds of comments from subscribers worldwide, I feel like I can now analyze their friendship from a much broader perspective than I initially thought possible. Chapter 1: The Foundation of Their Unequal Bond. Suho valued, recognized, and loved that crazy quality in Soon that courage was something Beomseok never had from the beginning, and it became a huge source of his inferiority complex. The discussion around Suho and Beomseok's relationship doesn't seem to go as deep as the Soon and Suho dynamic in most fan conversations. But since Beomseok is ultimately the character who cuts through the core of Weak Hero, we really need a deeper understanding of him. There's this scene where Beomseok basically interrogates Young Ai, convinced that she and Suho are sleeping together. He asks her, "Are you dating on Suho? Relationships are all about give and take. That guy lets you sleep at his house and gives you a job. What have you given Suho in return?" This scene reveals Beomseok's completely transactional view of relationships, shaped by his experience with conditional love. He couldn't understand Suho's kindness toward Yangai without assuming she was giving something back. Having never experienced unconditional love, Beomseok found it impossible to take Suho's goodwill at face value. Chapter 2: The Ring Scene and Its Devastating Impact. Season 1, Episode 7 is known among fans as that episode, the one you need to mentally prepare yourself for before watching. The friendship between Suho and Beomseok reaches its breaking point with escalating tension that hits a shocking climax at a completely unexpected moment. The ring sequence at the underground fighting venue serves as the ultimate release of all the psychological tension that had been building throughout these two boys' relationship. Kyung's acting in this scene is particularly brilliant because he conveyed that Beomseok's final act of violence wasn't purely evil, but rather an impulsive explosion of all the conflicting love-hate emotions towards Suho that had accumulated during their brief but intense friendship. When Beomseok finally strikes Suho's head in that final moment, the camera angles intentionally mirror the previous abuse scenes with his adoptive father. This visual parallel suggests that Beomseok was projecting all the hatred and pain from his father's violence onto Suho. In this boy's moment of rage, Suho becomes a symbol of everyone who had hurt Beomseok, everyone who had abused their power over him. I don't think Suho had any idea he carried this kind of symbolic weight for Beomseok. From Suho's perspective, if Beomseok had just accepted his request to apologize to Seasoning Yang, the situation would have ended there. Suho knew Beomseok hated him enough to sabotage his bike brakes, but he couldn't have known that his very existence was a projection of all the hatred that Beomseok desperately yearned for yet violently resented. Chapter 3: Love or Obsession. While the drama doesn't explicitly address Beomseok's sexual orientation, and the brilliance of Weak Hero's script lies in not trying to define teenage emotions with a single word, the script book details and directing choices led me to personally interpret that there were somewhat romantic elements in his feelings towards Suho. Reading through the deleted scenes of them drinking beer together by the Han River and going through the script book, I felt that Beomseok's admiration for Suho was implicitly close to love. But whether these feelings were romantic is less important than understanding the intensity and impact these two characters had on each other. Suho became Beomseok's entire self-worth. His validation, his escape from trauma, a burden no single person should ever have to carry. The brilliance of Weak Hero's script lies in not simplifying these emotions. Beomseok's feelings seem to exist somewhere between love and obsession, desperately burning anger and jealousy, and an unspoken but possible sexual attraction to the friend he admired. This ambiguity makes his character more realistic and tragic. as real human emotions rarely fit into neat categories. Chapter 4: The Cycle of Violence. Beomseok's story serves as a stark illustration of how childhood abuse creates cycles of violence. His adoptive father's political ambitions and physical abuse directly contributed to creating someone who would eventually harm others. The show doesn't use this as an excuse for Beomseok's actions, but it presents it as a tragic reality while still holding him accountable for his choices. The most chilling aspect of Beomseok's character development is how logically his violence follows from his experiences. He learned that might makes right, that the strong survive by dominating the weak, and that love must be earned through submission. These lessons, taught through years of abuse, became the foundation for his later actions. However, the drama also shows us moments when Beomseok could have chosen differently. His friendship with Seon and Suho offered him hope for building relationships unconditionally, an alternative model for pure friendship. But Beomseok's trauma responses were too deeply rooted for him to accept this gift. Chapter 5: The Question of Forgiveness. The most actively discussed topic among fans is whether Suho would forgive Beomseok if given the chance. Given Suho's character, the way he clearly compartmentalizes emotions and handles them rationally, my opinion is probably not, but many fans had different views on this. I think Suho would casually accept Bamseok's apology if he offered one, not because he forgave Bamseok, but because his mindset isn't weak enough to get stuck in the past. Since it's already over and he's someone who needs to move forward, he would probably focus on the present now that he's awake again. Knowing Suho's personality, he would pretend to move on and focus on the precious people in his life like his grandmother and Seon. Chapter 6: Hong Kyung's Masterful Performance. Hong Kyung's acting as Bamseok was absolutely incredible with its nuanced portrayal of psychological complexity. He managed to make us view Beomseok as a boy we could feel sympathy for while successfully drawing him as someone who was both very vulnerable and very destructive at the same time. What impressed me most was his ability to convey Beomseok's internal conflict, especially in episode 7, where love and hatred become indistinguishable. The subtlety of his acting, the process of Beomseok's admiration for Suho transforming into extreme rage, his desperate level of longing for Suho's recognition turning into hatred was absolutely remarkable. Hong Kyung convinced me that Beomseok's final act of violence wasn't calculated evil, but the destructive release of a young boy's deep, unfulfillable deficiency. The feeling that he couldn't get back what he gave to the friend he loved and admired most, and the deep friendship and love he felt he could never obtain from Suho. Chapter 7: The Food Connection. Reading through countless thoughtful comments from international fans, what often surprised me was how fans genuinely enjoy not missing very detailed aspects, thinking about things from multiple angles. Many fans picked up on how Beomseok wanted to show his affection through food and generosity. Beomseok always goes around saying, "I'll buy it," to see Un and Suho. Then, to escape Gilsu's threats, he took on such a huge risk, selling his adoptive father's watch to get a large sum of money. But when Suho and Siwon wouldn't accept it, Bamseok lost his only way of saying "I love you guys" through currency. Unlike Youngbin, Jongchan, and their group who he had gained attention from through money, Suho and Siwon truly saw Beomseok as a friend. When his only means of expressing love and affection, money, didn't work, the boy had no other healthy way to communicate his feelings. Ironically, violence became his only remaining strategy for showing love, which is so heartbreaking. The provocative testing of Suho in the cafeteria, the sabotaging of Suho's bike brakes, and the destructive actions in the ring all became the boy's only remaining strategy for showing affection. Chapter 8: Script Book Revelations. Because I was so obsessed with getting inside Beomseok's head, I ended up buying the official script book. There, I discovered details that completely changed my understanding of their relationship dynamics. In the deleted Han River scene where Suho and Beomseok drink beer together after playing pool, the script includes specific directions. When Suho puts his armor on Beomseok's shoulder, he smiles shyly and he agrees with and laughs at everything Suho says. Looking at this direction, I couldn't help but wonder if the production team had ever given similar directing to Seed when he was with Suho. Beomseok, smiling shyly when Suho puts his arm around his shoulder, reminded me of someone whose heart is fluttering when alone with their romantic interest. What further convinced me was the scene right before Beomseok meets the group at the cafe. The scene where he arranges his hair while looking at himself in a full-length mirror before checking Suho's Instagram. In a drama where every minute is symbolic and meaningful, why would they spend time on a close-up of him fixing his hair unless they intended to convey something specific about Beomseok's emotional state? Chapter 9. The Instagram Incident. The Instagram follow situation serves as the perfect microcosm of Beomseok's psychological state. On the surface, it seems like a trivial teenage concern, but for Beomseok, this became a symbol of acceptance versus rejection, inclusion versus abandonment. When Beomseok discovered that Suho followed Yangai but didn't respond to his own follow request, it confirmed his fear about his own worth and where he stood with his most beloved friend. For a teenager with abandonment trauma, the meaning of social media interactions isn't simple. What makes this incident even more heartbreakingly dramatic is that Suho probably had no idea about the importance Beomseok placed on social media interactions. Suho's casual approach to social media versus Beomseok's desperate obsession with recognition represented a fundamental mismatch between the two friends and how they processed emotions. Chapter 10. Two Subscriber Perspectives. I've received brilliant analyses from subscribers about why Beomseok destroyed Suho in the ring. One subscriber focused on calling Beomseok a big body with a child inside who hasn't fully grown up. Basically, underneath all the violence, there's a pitiful boy who never learned how to give and receive unconditional love. According to this perspective, every time Suho and C showed friendship to Beomseok, you could literally see the child inside light up. They describe this as a child tasting warmth for the first time. Because this warmth was so foreign yet sweet, he became afraid of losing it and eventually came to resent the very people who gave it to him. Another subscriber had a different interpretation. They felt that Beomseok learned a twisted lesson from his adoptive father: love someone enough to teach them by hitting them when they disappoint you. According to this logic, when Suho fell short of expectations, he deserved to be hit too. The ring scene was essentially Beomseok treating Suho the way his adoptive father had treated him. Chapter 11. The Language Barrier. The fundamental problem wasn't that these boys didn't care about each other, it's that they spoke completely different emotional languages. Suho operates with direct communication. If Beomseok had simply said during their Han River beer session, "Hey, why didn't you follow me back on Instagram?" Suho would have probably laughed, said he deleted the app, and immediately re-downloaded it. Problem solved in 30 seconds. But Beomseok was the type to run countless mental simulations before taking action, wondering how Suho would react, whether he'd appear too desperate. He overthought every possible scenario, paralyzed by the fear of seeming too needy. Suho wasn't emotionally unavailable. He was just 17 years old and expressed affection the way most teenage boys do, through actions rather than words. He naturally showed his role as a protector by having them call him Hyung, and when Beomseok kept insisting on paying, Suho would show his style of care by saying, "Today, this Hyung will buy everything." But every gesture Suho made to show care was filtered through Beomseok's trauma-informed interpretation system, where actions were analyzed for hidden meanings and potential signs of rejection. Chapter 12. The Mathematical Tragedy. As one insightful subscriber shared, even if Yang Ai and Sion had never entered the picture, Suho and Beomseok's friendship would have eventually crumbled. Beomseok's needs were growing exponentially while Suho's capacity to meet them remained constant. It was a mathematical inevitability. This reframes their story from what went wrong to what was always going to go wrong. Their friendship wasn't destroyed by external forces, it was slowly suffocating under the weight of incompatible emotional systems. Suho could never have known that for Beomseok, their friendship wasn't just companionship, it was survival. Beomseok had attached his entire sense of self-worth to Suho's approval and attention. When that started to waver, it wasn't just disappointing, it was existentially threatening. Suho was just an ordinary boy who maintained friendships the way most teenage boys do. But Beomseok was completely different. His messed up childhood conditioned him to read all interactions deeply and interpret them negatively, constantly wanting people to explicitly state their approval, constantly watching for signs that someone was going to leave him. Conclusion: if you're a fan who has watched this drama multiple times, you know there's never a wasted scene. Every detail carries meaning. The brilliance of Weak Hero Class 1's direction lies in how it makes us warmly watch Suho and Beomseok building their friendship, then concludes it so destructively and shockingly. Suho and Beomseok's friendship was unsustainable from the beginning. If Seon hadn't had that crazy quality that Suho always responded to and was fascinated by, Beomseok's final action probably would have fallen to Seon instead. The script book message haunts me. I admired you so much. I loved you so much. I'm really sorry. Suho, yeah. It captures the entire tragedy. The love was real, the admiration was genuine, and the sorry was necessary. Their story isn't just about two characters in a drama. It's about the wounds that come from loving someone in a language they can't understand, the sadness of needing something from someone that they can't give, and the painful realization that good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. That's all for today's episode of my personal hot takes on K dramas. This has been my candid thoughts and deep emotional reactions to one of the most complex relationships I've ever seen on screen. I'm just your fellow K drama obsessive, sharing my passionate analysis with you all. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode where I'll dive into more of the characters and relationships that keep us all emotionally invested in this masterpiece. Until then, keep analyzing and keep those comments coming.